What is the future of food production? GMOs. They are genetically modified organisms. Growing up and helping my grandpa in his garden has given me some insight on what it takes to produce food. GMOs are helpful to farmers because of how they are modified. More crops can be grown in a smaller time period. Most people believe GMOs are harmful and shouldn't be used. GMOs will help the world produce more food in the future when there are fewer farmers. GMOs are bred for several qualities. One of the main things they are bred for is pest resistance, such as weeds and insects. BT corn is one of many crops that has been modified for pest resistance. When something is changed from its original form, would it not make sense that the taste and quality would change too? If pesticides are used to kill weeds and insects, then why is it safe to be inserted in our food? I believe GMOs are a useful tool and are a useful thing to have, but I also have my doubts about the safety of human consumption. According to Anna Madaris Miller, health and wellness editor at the U.S. News, in her article, Are GMOs Really That Harmful to Eat?, in the April 29, 2015 post of the U.S. News and World Report, says, advocates say GM crops don't pose a health threat and can help feed the world's population, since many are bred to resist insects that carry diseases and tolerate herbicides targeted at weeds. Seeing a decrease in the amount of farmers does not help the situation. There is projected to be a 2% decrease in the number of farmers from 2014 to 2024. This shows that we need another option. GMOs give us the ability to produce more food in less time and space. With pest-resistant crops, farmers will be able to yield more food per acre, per plant. Yield refers to the amount of crops that you can get from the plant. When viewing the outlook of the population and how many farmers there will be, the population is increasing very rapidly and the number of farmers is decreasing at a high rate. This means either produce GMOs or produce our food in a petri dish. I would much rather have GMOs. A lot of people are anti-GMO and are going organic, but the truth is organic food is much harder to come by, seeing as farmers can't produce them at as high of a rate since he can't use pesticides. Although the main things GMOs do now is resist pests, researchers are coming up with ways to improve food where they contain certain vitamins and minerals they lack. Scientists figured out a way to put medications in bananas so that people in third world countries can have the care that they need. There is also a study done on rice and to see how good it is for people and how they can improve its healthiness. As stated by Bruce Alberts, President Emeritus of the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, in his article Standing Up for GMOs in Science magazine on September 20, 2013, rice is a major dietary staple for almost half of humanity, but white rice grains lack vitamin A. Research scientists Ingo Patrikus and Peter Bayer and their teams developed a rice variety whose grains accumulate B-carotene. Golden rice took over 25 years to create and get the right to distribute. Creating GMOs that have nutrients that are needed on a daily basis will help people that aren't able to get food easily. Modifying a crop like rice, which is filling and cheap, to have vitamins needed will help people be healthier and live better lives. Changing crops may help production for people to be healthier, but is it considered advancement if we aren't doing better than other countries that don't use GMOs? Studies show that the U.S. produces the same amount of crops as countries that don't use GMOs. In agreement with Danny Hakim, investigative reporter of the New York Times, in his article Doubts About the Promised Bounty of Genetically Modified Crops, released on October 30, 2016, an analysis by the Times using United Nations data shows that the United States and Canada have gained no discernible advantage in yields, which is food per acre, when measured against Western Europe, a region with comparably modernized agricultural products like France and Germany. The U.S. produces food for itself and exports several commodities to other countries, which pulls the amount of production up. Seeing as how the U.S. produces a lot of its own food and a lot of food for other countries, I don't see how we are more agriculturally advanced and we aren't producing more food in other countries that don't have the same technology as the U.S. A lot of people believe GM crops aren't good for your health or that they cause you to get sick. I think GM crops are actually a useful tool and they should be more utilized, but who am I to say? I also have my doubts about the health risk they bring to the table. As reported by Wilhelm Klumper and Martin Kaim from the Department of Agricultural Economics and Rural Development of Germany, spoke in their peer-reviewed journal titled A Meta-Analysis of the Impacts of the Genetically Modified Crops on November 3, 2014. Numerous independent science academies and regulatory bodies have reviewed the evidence about risk, concluding that commercialized GM crops are safe for human consumption and the environment. When scientists modify crops, it is to change things like having pesticides in the plant to be able to protect it from being destroyed. It is safe for the environment because instead of spraying pesticides and it becoming airborne and affecting the air, the plant is made to resist the pest. Even though we can tell it is safer in the environment, how do we know that it is safe for human consumption? You always hear about lab rats. Well, with the case of GMOs, lab rats are used for testing the safety of crop for people to eat. According to Arpad Pusztai, biochemist and nutritionist in Action Bioscience, in the June 2001 edition of his article, Genetically Modified Foods, are they a risk to human and animal health? In acute toxicity studies with male and female rats, which were tube-fed homogenized GM tomatoes, toxic effects were claimed to be absent. In addition, it was concluded that mean body and organ weights, weight gains, food consumption, and clinical chemistry or blood parameters were not significantly different between GM-fed and control groups. Even though the study was done on rats, it should have the same effects on humans, proving GMOs are harmless and helpful. Scientists say they are harmless, but what if someone does get sick from it? Does the government take action? In 2014, President Obama passed a law about GMOs and what the government will do if they become harmful in the future, which is basically nothing. In Alan Bro's book, GMO 101, A Practical Guide to Genetically Engineering Food, he stated that on March 25, 2014, President Obama signed into law H.R. 933, otherwise known as the Monsanto Protection Act. This bill, created by Monsanto-backed Senator Roy Blunt, states that even if future research shows that GMOs or GE seeds cause significant health problems like digestive problems, allergies, tumors, cancer, anything, that the federal courts no longer have any power to stop their spread, use, or sales. The president is supposed to do things to protect the people, and signing into law a bill like this isn't protecting them. If anyone gets sick from eating GM crops, the government isn't going to take the crop off the market. They have to leave them alone. I do not agree with this law because I believe the government should do everything they can for the people. In conclusion, the use of GM crops will increase over the next years to help provide food for the world because of disease resistance and other things they are modified for. They are safe for people to eat, but if in the future they become unsafe for consumption, then the government can't do anything to stop the spread and use of them.